makes Green Meadows so amazing is that not only do the staff have a relationship with our tenants, but the staff have a relationship with each other. We have the most amazing relationships in our works environment amongst all of us. So we are all friends. We are really here for each other.
We offer customer service that supports our tenants and make them feel homely.
We are able to, because we are such amazing work environments, we are able to offer that to our tenants. So we are able to create spaces where our tenants can come to speak to us about stuff. We are able to create spaces where our tenants can really live out their student life with us.
Hello everyone, my name is Atang Swartpoe, founder of hashtag You Before Me, and we are joined today by the very self in the flesh. We are joined today by an absolute stalwart in the fight against gender-based violence, and I am not excited for this one. Welcome to Seshweek with hashtag You Before Me. We continue to apply the pressure on gender-based violence because here we just operate. And in the operations of fighting, activism, author, everything that works, when you want a gender-based violence person to talk to, she is probably the first reference point for everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now have Ms. Boitumelo Tlhage with us. Boitumelo, how are you? Are you okay? Are you great? I see that you are here with us. That's what matters. Oksalayo, you are here. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, and you?
I am fantastic, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I do know that you have a busy schedule, and for you to take out your time like this, helping us educate people is a revelation on itself, and it's also just crucial in how we go about fighting this fight. I have my cue cards, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to start with my questioning right now. Not going to be easy questions. I hope you guys engage and interact with us in the comment section. Please do so. Tell your friends the live has started. Encourage them to join because it's about to get packed and exciting. Boitumelo, I want to first start off with something that I saw. You met up with the president. Yeah. And you even got a hug from the president himself. How did that come about? Where did this all come about? Well, how? Just tell us.
There was a presidential golf day organized by the ANC Women's League, and I was receiving an award for community service. So basically, that's just it.
Wow, I mean, guys, if you are unsure of the quality and what qualifies her to be here, you can see that she's even being a recipient to the president. Thank you so much, Boitumelo. Now, I want to first start off with something important that you do. You are someone who is very personal and very passionate about encouraging education. And while you're doing this, you actually wrote a book. You are now an author. The book is called My Voice Matters. And I want to know what made you write that book? Please tell us as to the thought process of why did I need to write this book as Boitumelo Tlhage? Tell us.
So I've organized few programs and protests related to the anti-gender-based violence movement, and I've realized that it's actually mainly children who want to form part, but they do not know how to, and it's very important that we amplify their voices and make sure that they know that their voices are very valid and give them an understanding of how they can form part of the anti-gender-based violence movement through amplifying and affirming them as children within society.
Hey, and I promise you, we're going to amplify all these voices here. And I hope the people watching will also learn from this and also just amplify the voices. And talking about the book, right? But I want to know, now, before this, I think it was right about when you were 19, 18, that's where you started to do all of these things. And yes, I do my research on my speakers, yes. And I want to know just what encouraged you to say, I want to be a victim of gender-based violence and I want to help people. Take me through that. What made you realize that you really want to be at the forefront of fighting such an important and such a perpetuated issue?
There's two reasons why, or possibly more, but the main reasons being the fact that it's very difficult for victims to speak up about the societal issues that we face and this pandemic that's called gender-based violence. And the other reason being that as a woman, you exist in a space that is very violent towards you and a space that does not want you to exist within it. And it's very important that as women, we give each other a very valid voice to speak up, and we allow ourselves to know that there's a community, and that community is a safe space for us to exist in. Yeah.
And I really want everyone to learn from this, what he said now, teaching people to learn how to express themselves. And you have learned through that. Now, like I said, you wrote the book and everything. And you have now seen the importance of awareness. And Xavier and I spoke about awareness in our previous Seshweek session. And he said that we are past the stage of awareness now. Now, for you, why is this like important for us to say we are past the stage of awareness? What is next for you? What is next? Do you agree with the fact that we are past the stage of awareness and we need something else? What is next in your eyes?
Hold on. Please re-ask your question quickly.
I wanted to ask, David and I talked about, the awareness part of things, and we are past the stage of raising awareness now. Everyone knows about this issue, and I want to know from you, what is next? What needs to be done next? Identify the small issues and just dissect them for us as to what you think needs to be done next. Okay, it seems like you have lost your audio. We have lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we need to move into active groundwork and move on to social media and being social media activists. So the work that we do on social media needs to overflow into being on the ground and actually going into communities where people are heavily affected by gender-based violence and actually speaking to them and giving them a voice and amplifying that work and educating them on consent and on this. It's a pandemic, so we need to be very loud and proud about it, and we need to fight it actively.
Now, one of my pieces, like you said, it's a pandemic. I identified two things. I identified the fight against gender-based violence and identified the fight against COVID-19. And I made this very, very gruesome comparison that in COVID-19, we basically fight it with words filled with a vacuum implementation, meaning we just have no implementation at all. People say we're going to do this, but nothing happens. And that on itself lies on the government, right? But before I get to that, the other comparison that I made was the fact that when you fight COVID-19, our soldiers, you can't see the disease, but you are fighting with AK-47s. Our soldiers are on streets with guns and all of that. I want to know from you. I want to clarify things. Maybe it might trigger some people. Is this a government issue? Should gender-based violence be seen as something that the government needs to do more on?
The government's not doing anything to begin with. So there's definitely a lot of work that the government needs to do in terms of fighting the gender-based violence movement, and it needs to start with them not making empty promises regarding the movement, but actually putting into action everything that they set out that they would do. We are tired of hearing statistics. We are tired of hearing the empty promises. We want to see the action. We want to see the work being done.
Sure. Now, I want us to concretize this, meaning I want us to make this practical. I want you to talk as if you're talking to 3-year-olds right now, because that's what we need in this day and age. We need to talk so that people understand what you're trying to express to them. Future fathers, future mothers, future husbands are here. And for you, how do you concretize solving the issue of gender-based violence? Future teachers are also here. To a young person watching who is all those things that I mentioned, I just want to know, how do you concretize? How do you make the solutions practical so that it's easy for them to execute and implement exactly what we are teaching right now?
So just say the last two sentences.
How do you make this practical? How do you tell a person who is a future father, a future teacher, a future mother, let's focus on the fathers and the teachers first, the male perspective. How do you make them understand that, okay, here are the things that need to be done. Here is how you can do them. Put it into layman's terms and practicalize these issues for us.
Okay, for future fathers, it is very important that they understand that they are raising girl children and boy children who are going to enter into a society that currently exists as being violent towards women and children. And if you are a mother, you need to understand that automatically you are the face of an anti-gender-based violence movement. And in being the face, you need to carry yourself in a certain way in society, so that in everything that you do, you're fighting the gender-based violence pandemic, and you're speaking up and you're being proud in everything that you do, so that children who are looking at you know that it's very important to speak up and to be loud and proud.
I also heard a very important and operative statement there, which is self-introspection. Look at yourself first, which is such an important thing to say, because my next question relates to exactly what you said before, like when you said we are posting, it's all good and well, but we are now past that stage. I want us to talk about social media activism. And talking about social media activism, the people who are future fathers, husbands, and uncles, the people who are going to have close relations to the women and the people, the children, just in this COVID-19 pandemic, are we using social media effectively to tackle these societal issues?
Yes, Zagan and I actually had this conversation a few weeks ago about social media and activism, being a social media activist. And what I said is that we can't be activists outside of social media, because we're part of the fourth industrial revolution, and this is where we find ourselves as young people. But if we leave it on social media, it's going to be very difficult for us to actually win the fight against gender-based violence. Because, I mean, for example, if it has to happen that social media no longer exists, many people would no longer have a voice. So that's why I keep saying that we need to go into communities and actually be there for the people who are heavily affected by gender-based violence, and not having these summits in hotels, but actually going into townships, going into rural areas and speaking to the people who are deeply, deeply affected by the anti-gender-based violence movement. And also, not the movement, but the pandemic itself. And also knowing that it's very important that you never stop. If you're a social media activist, be consistent. Don't only do it at a certain time during the year, but do it 365 days in a year, 24/7. If you're going to be on the ground, be consistent. Do not only come out in 16 days of activism. Do not only come out during the the August month, but always be loud and proud. Be heavily in the face of government. Be consistent with the hashtag, so that people know that it's not a seasonal thing. It's something that we're fighting daily, and we're never going to stop fighting.
Now, I want us to touch on a very small issue, but an issue that has such a big altercation on the way gender-based violence is portrayed, number one, and the way gender-based violence has just increased by exponential numbers, and that is the lack of knowledge for people in rural areas. Now, you did mention that without social media, we basically can't have voices. Those that don't have voices, laymen people living in the rural areas who don't know that they have the right to dignity, they don't know that they have the right to respect, entrenched into our constitution of this country. How do we then go to them? You mentioned that you want to go, you have to do the groundwork, you have to go into the communities. But if we go to your communities, just how do we approach those issues? How do we empower them? I want to ask, and I'm gonna go to empowerment programs that you have set up. But for someone who is not as influential as you are, maybe who people don't follow as you are followed, just what is their role in addressing these issues to persons that don't have as much information as we do because of the lack of social media platforms that they don't have?
I'll speak from. I love speaking from experience because it's the only way that I'll be able to speak from a place of honesty. So I usually, if I work in a community, I would not approach 1,000 people. I would approach 10 or 20 people so that I know that I'm impacting 10 people who are going to go out and impact another 10 people who are going to go out and impact another 10 people. But if you go out and you want to speak to 1,000 people, you're not going to make an impact because you're going to lose it. They're not gonna, it's too many people at once. But if you build relationships with 10 people, you know for a fact that they are able to hold you accountable, and you're able to watch and monitor their progress, and you're able to then, sort of launch them into saying, okay, now I've educated you and I've imparted them this wisdom and this knowledge, and now you can go out and find another 10 or 5 people and do the same thing for them. But another way in which we can enter into communities is through skills development programs, and this is beyond gender-based violence. But I believe that if people in communities are being empowered economically and just being able to enter into society and be independent and not dependent on grants, we'd have a society that isn't as violent as it is right now. Because I think many men are very angry at the fact that they're unable to provide for their families, and therefore become violent, and they respond to that in a certain way. And yeah, we have a lot of issues that come and are rooted from the financial status of this country. So we need to address that as well.
Sure. I think what one person said here was one person at a time, which is exactly what you're saying. I mean, you need to monitor these people's progress, and that's what we strive for as an initiative. So I think that's very important indeed. Now, empowerment on a fiscal level, you touched on that word, and we are now going to go into detail about that. And we're going to touch on the small issues. You have an initiative called the Second Chance, and you started this initiative, and I have been monitoring it, and it's been absolutely a fantastic initiative which has really helped people. And I want to say that you have provided food to people, you provide clothes, you are encouraging people to make donations. But to people who don't understand the relevancy of these things, the relevancy of them needing to donate, them needing to help you to empower these people, just explain the relevancy thereof. Why do we need to invest into empowerment programs like you have done?
It's very important because we're living in a society that's becoming very selfish very quickly, and very it's all about me. So we need to move towards building each other up and being able to live with each other. So this year we're celebrating the year of Charlotte, my friend, who was a stalwart and who was an influential woman who, she's a trailblazer, or was a trailblazer. And I believe that her legacy of bringing him up is to be something that we live by every single day, so that we're able to, that's the only way we're going to uplift communities, is if when I go up, I bring people with me.
Sure. And I want you to correct me. I want you to correct the accuracy of this statement. I believe, and I've always said, and whatever I do, I try to live up to the statement. I believe that education leads to empowerment, and empowerment leads to independence, and independence leads to equality and equity. How accurate is this? And why is it accurate or inaccurate?
How did it what?
How accurate is this? And why is it accurate or inaccurate? The statement that I just said now, which is education leads to empowerment, empowerment leads to independence, and independence leads to equality and equity. How accurate is this?
It's accurate because if people are not educated, they do not have knowledge, and they die. Even in the Bible, it speaks about how my people perish because of lack of knowledge and lack of wisdom. So I believe that communities that are uneducated are not empowered, and they are therefore dying. And that's why we experience that looting that happens across the country. It's because people are uneducated, unempowered, and unable to provide for themselves, and therefore are suffering and they're dying. So for me, education is the only way that we're going to empower people. It's the only way that we're going to provide people with the independence that they need. Because I, for one, do not believe that people need grants. They do not need RDPs. They need to be empowered so that they know that I can get this for myself. I can provide for my family. I do not need to be dependent on a government that probably doesn't even care about, what this 350 is going to do. I also believe that this 350 grants is very it's not realistic, because you can't give a family of 10 350 to survive. That does not make sense. They did not even look at how many people are in a household. And that's something that our organization does. We want to know how many people living in a household and how many people in that household are expected to live off 350. That must go to school fees, that must go to groceries, that must go to electricity, water, and lights. And now the government is expecting that their salaries of about 80,000 plus, way more than that, must sustain them. But the general public must live off of 350 rand, which doesn't make sense. But if the government invested all that money into educating and into educational structures and facilities and ensuring that, okay, we're going to empower you, we're going to provide you with skills, we're going to train you to be entrepreneurs and open up your own businesses, we're going to take your children to schools in Cuba and other countries, or to the University of the Witwatersrand, with the money that you would have been getting through the grants, they'd be empowering generations, not just, for the temporary moment of the 350 a month, but long-term. Education is long-term, you can't take it away. So that's something that we need to invest in actively and genuinely.
Now, I want us to touch on something that you already touched on very briefly, and those are the institutions. You're so smart. I love the way you think. Because that's long-term thinking, which is quite what we need in this country. I want to touch on institutions, the roles of institutions, and I'm going to mention a few of them. And if I trigger someone, I apologize, but we need to talk about these issues. Number one, religious institutions. You mentioned in the Bible, it is entrenched that, that was entrenched that you said, I can't remember exactly what, because I don't know my Bible as well, but in the Bible that those principles are entrenched, that we need to respect each other and everything. Religious institutions, number one, are they doing enough to promote gender equality and equity?
I'm a Christian, and I truly genuinely believe and love God, and everything I am is, but that's fine. But I genuinely don't think that the church has played an important role in fighting the gender-based violence movement. But I would not want to speak on behalf of the church, because I'm not a religious leader. But in my opinion, I think there's so much more that they could do as a community of religious leaders and as a religious structure. I think they have a lot of influence, and that if they came together, they'd be able to empower people and educate communities. But that's on the constructive criticism side. On the positive side, there are a few churches that I personally know that go out and fight period poverty and speak up about gender-based violence. And there are churches who have acknowledged where they have been, racism, and they've come out and said, educate us so that we're able to portray the full love of God to all people, regardless of race. And I think that's something that we must celebrate.
Yeah.
God knows celebrate. Yeah.
What else? Your name. So, and I think it's so important because, like you say, they have so much influence, right? And we can talk about influencers and everyone else, but the fact of the matter is the people with the most influence are the churches and schools. I'm going to get to schools now, but the reason why I ask about religious institutions is that I find myself in a room of hundreds of people who can be told that, gender equality means this. It doesn't mean that just because someone identifies themselves as something else, it doesn't mean that, you must forget what the Bible teaches you and everything. Just love that person as they are and respect them for who they are. That's what I believe. I'm a Christian myself, but I've been attacked on a moral basis about the merit of my Christianity. When I, for example, have gay friends, and we know that gender-based violence is not only restricted to women, but also many people of different genders. Gender is not one. It's not male and female. That is sex. We're talking about people who identify as different genders. And when I talk to Christian people, I feel like I get attacked for, why aren't you helping that person right? I mean, what is your view on that? Are we supposed to say, I'm going to help you right because what you're doing is a sin? We are telling these people who say that this is who I am, but you are living a sin. We have heard so many times about gay people who are murdered, who are butchered as well. Not only women, but also people who identify as transgender and everything else. What is your view on that? So are we supposed to say, as if you are Christian or you are Muslim and whatever your faith tells you, that being this kind is, it's immoral and wrong? What is your belief towards that? What should we educate about this issue?
I think on the David and I always have this conversation. We're always very tongue-tied. I think it's a very sensitive issue, and I wouldn't say experienced in that regard, but I always believe there's room for learning. It's very important that if you don't know, you teach yourself so that you are able to respond it. So in terms of the LGBTQIA+, yes, I fight for them. Yes, I advocate for their rights. Yes, I stand up for them and I speak for them. But I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't have that knowledge. Because I said it on a previous live with Xavier and Taylor as well, that when I first heard of lesbians and gays, I was in high school and I got the shock of my life. And because of that, when my friend came out and said she's lesbian, I was unable to provide her with that support because of the religious, influence that I had from church. So I responded in a way that even though I did not bash her or I didn't insult her, but I wasn't as supportive as you expect your friend to be when you come out about such an issue. So that's why I truly, truly believe in educating each other about everything. Educating each other about how to treat the LGBTQIA+, educating each other about how to react when somebody comes out. Feeling your face is something that affects somebody, and we need to create a very safe space for everybody to express and to say, I'm okay and I'm going to be okay with it because, I have a community of people that are welcoming. Because yes, the LGBTQIA+ is a community and they love each other, but where the community is tested is when a gay person steps out into the world responds in a different way. Because the love that they need is outside in the world, not in their own community. So that's why I'm always very, very concerned and very, very worried about how there's a lack of education when it comes to the LGBTQ community. And it's something that I'm trying to tap into, but time and space, we're very patient and we'd always fight for them and advocate for their rights. Their voices also matter and their voices are valued all the time. But yeah.
Now I want to focus on a very pertinent issue. Now, most of us are here. We are in varsity. We are in schools. We are on our way to varsity. We are on our way to schools. That is a very important institution because those are the people that we need to target. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but those are the people that we need to target. A school, a university as an institution. What exactly do you expect of them? Hence why I said, I don't think this is a government issue. I think that it is up to us now, and us meaning religious institutions, schools, universities, tertiary institutions, all of them.
Yeah.
What is expected of them as institutions to say, we identify this as an issue. We are not going to do it because of a stakeholder relation that we have towards the community for our community response programs and whatever, so that we look good in the public. But what do you expect of them as an tertiary education institution or secondary education institution?
I truly expect more effort and not just a rubber or not a rubber, like a bandage on the problem. I expect them to be very active in addressing the issue, because I've seen how institutions, let me speak on gender-based violence, institutions will say, we're going to give you pepper spray? And my response, personally, at Junisa that year was, my response to them that year was that you can't give us pepper spray because you're basically saying you're going to get raped, you're going to get beaten, but here, go defend yourself. They did not speak to the problem. They did not get to the root of the problem in addressing gender-based violence, which is my biggest problem. I think even government and institutions at large will give you a bandage and say, here, just cover it for now, and we'll sort it out again later when the wound opens up. They don't actively speak to the bigger problem, which is addressing the perpetrators and addressing, because the problem doesn't lie with victims, the problem doesn't lie with women, the problem lies with men. So why would you give us pepper sprays and give us tasers and give us, what's the other thing that, self-defense class? I don't mind. That's something that must happen, yes. Prevention is better than cure, but what are you saying about perpetrators? What are you saying about teaching young boys that if a woman dresses in a certain way, you have no right to look at her in that way? If a woman sits in a certain way, it does not mean you're entitled to her body. Those are things that you don't teach men. Yeah.
I do understand. I do understand when people come in uninterrupted. And a very important issue that you already touched on. I think what we can take away from that is the fact that we cannot undermine the value of institutions. As people, as persons, institutions are us. We are the people in the institutions. And what you just said now, which is, guys, doesn't matter how a girl is dressed or doesn't matter how she sits. The fact of the matter is she does not belong to you either ways. It does not mean that just because she places a hand over your shoulder, she wants you. It just means that she has that respect for you and she feels comfortable with you. Talking about comfortability, how comfortable are you around men?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 0, because often when men that I don't know preach in public, I force myself to smile. Like, you know what? I don't want to die, so I'm just going to be nice. And I don't think that's a world that we want to live in. I want to be nice to men because they're nice to me without them expecting or wanting anything in return. But it's not the reality that we're faced with. We're faced with the reality of just being nice to men. We don't want to die. So,
what should we do? When I see a beautiful woman like Bitumelo and I want to compliment her without ulterior motives, what should I do? Man watching, pay attention. What should I do though? Tell me what I should do. Okay?
don't do it.
So it's basically just like move on with your life. How do I then talk to women?
There's ways of approaching. There's ways of approaching women in a respectable manner, and it comes in by approaching her and saying, hi, I saw you from wherever, and I just wanted to say that you look very beautiful today or whatsoever. But to whistle at me from across the road and do all these things from wherever you come from makes it very difficult for us as women to be nice to a man who's going to come respectfully, I think.
Sure. I wanna wrap up with 3 last questions. Out of everything that you've been through, everything that you've done, what was the single most important moment for you when you realized this is worth the fight?
The 2018 Nicholas Linau case was one. The second one is a bit personal, but I'll just share it. I was at campus as a university worker, sort of type of thing, and he tried to force himself on me, and I then said, "But don't touch me." And his response to what I said is what shocked me, and he said, when you are an activist, police will come, let me not touch you. So in my mind, I said, so if I wasn't an activist, you were going to force yourself onto me because you don't expect that another woman who's not an activist is going to fight for herself. And what shocks me even more after that is the fact that other girls after that came and spoke about that very same person and said, this is what he did to me. And I was shocked. And I think that's even where the principle of believing the victim at all times comes from, because even when I spoke, nobody believed me and they were like, oh man, no man, you know. But knowing that there were other females who had the same problem with the same person in the same space of time is what made me think, you know, maybe the fight is way bigger than me and, you know, what what I might have seen or what I might have experienced. So yeah, that's basically where it comes from.
And, and there are many women watching, there are many men watching that will watch after this, and I want you to talk to them. First of all, I want us to deal with women because I want to deal with men last, and then I want to talk to men after that. I want to deal with women first. As a strong woman in South Africa, address your fellow women. Advise them on certain issues that you think they should know. Someone who's seen it, someone who's lived it, someone who's experienced what sometimes other people experience. Talk to them. You have the platform, talk to them.
All right. I would not take long on this because I think for the most part, women are not the problem. But in the cases that they are the problem, I just want to tell women that it's important that you believe your fellow woman victim or survivor, because we live in a society where it could happen to you at any time. So if you do not believe the victim, are you expecting us to also not believe you when it one day happens to you? And
Wow.
God forbid, of course. But I think it's also very important that in believing the victim, you must be okay with looking stupid. Because yes, we acknowledge that some women lie. And in that case, I would still go for believing the victim. The principle being that if, for example, I'm just going to find the name, Fasiha.
Yes.
Yes. If, for example, Fasiha experiences gender-based violence and speaks to me about it, and I decide, or I respond in a certain way that isn't supportive, she might be able to get over it. There might be other women, Letiwe might be watching me respond to that and say, oh, but I'm also a victim, and if I speak up, she's not going to stick with me, so you know what, let me just not speak up about it. So believing the victim is not even just about that one victim, it's about thousands of other victims who are going to find a voice in that moment when they hear you fighting for another victim. So it's a principle that we must always just accustom ourselves with. Yeah.
And to men watching, you have repeatedly mentioned the importance of men's participation in the fight against gender-based violence. But to me, talk to me, someone who's now actively involved in fighting, I don't know much. I'm learning from you. Talk to me, talk to the men watching right now. What is needed from us so that this issue is not escalated as much as it is now? We will never finish this overnight, but what we can do is try and fight it and just lessen the numbers a little, whatever we can. Talk to me, tell me, Atang, I want you to do this. I expect this from you. Tell me what you want from me.
I think men, first of all, need to be more involved. Second of all, need to educate themselves. Third of all, they need to acknowledge that they are the problem and stop being defensive. That's it.
Sure. Okay. And I want to touch on what you just said now before I move on to my segment, which is don't be defensive. I made a comparison the other day. Guys, think about this. I'm going to practicalize this issue. You buy a bag of cookies. When you open it, you eat one, you taste that one of them is poo, meaning like shit, you know? My question to you then is, will you try out the rest? If you still believe that not all men are the problem, you are a problem. Because here's what it is. You are not doing enough to educate those problems. So stop saying not all men are not the problem. Now, Moving on to my segment. Allow me to speak with you, and I want to talk to you. I want to talk to each and everyone watching. I want to first address a very important issue, which is women. Women, we have seen many women fall and never be taken seriously. Like Pitumelo said, if not you, then who? If you are not going to support your fellow woman, telling you that I was molested, like we learned from Martinique yesterday, that I was raped, who is going to tell that woman? You are a future mother. As a future mother, just tell your friend that listen, or your daughter that listen, this is you, I love you, you're my son or you're my daughter for a reason. I want to talk to men now. Men, I'm leaving my thing. Vitumelo is gone. I'm leaving my papers, my script notes, everything. Young men, I have said this many a time. It is very important that you listen to this. Please stop being defensive. Your defensive nature is going to get your daughter killed. Think about this analogy for a second. If your mother was exposed to gender-based violence, like everyone is right now, how are you going to feel? I'm not saying that you will be, God forbid, like she said, but it's a scenario that might happen. We hear every single day that 3 people get raped every single day. It's very important that you pay attention to what's happening, because the fact of the matter is it might happen to your daughter. It's mentally taxing for you to fight this fight not knowing what difference you are making. However, I promise you, someone will see what you're doing. Someone will realize what you're doing, and someone will want to follow in your footsteps. You will not know about that person following in your footsteps, but you will have made the change necessary for that person to follow in your footsteps. Your footsteps are so important. Please leave good footsteps behind you, because the scars that we leave on women wander like the afternoon shadow that you have. Young man, I want you to do something. Like I said before, I want you to breathe in and out. Realize that every single victim do not have that privilege anymore. You can really help the situation by not only educating yourself, but making an effort to educate your friends. Do not allow your friends to tell you what is wrong from right. Do not allow your friends to show you the wrong way, even if you know that this is how I'm taught at home. I say this all the time. Home is where education lies. You are a future father, husband, uncle, grandfather. What you teach your child is ultimately what the child is going to inherit. My friend, the apple does not fall away from the tree. Please take note that your actions have repercussions. You, and only you, have the opportunity to decide which repercussions you want. Repercussion does not mean negative. It can also be positive. From the bottom of my heart, my name is Atang Swartboy. I am the founder of #YouBeforeMe. We are advocating for educating young men at a huge scale. Thank you so much for joining us. As you can hear, I'm very passionate. I hope this gets you passionate as well. I'm very thankful and grateful for each and one of you. Xavier, thank you for yesterday and the previous day and the day before that. Every single one of you. Barafine SA, for you to be here as a man is testament to our potential as South Africans. And I want to just conclude by asking you to please join us on Friday. We have another session. Please do join us. Tomorrow's one is postponed, but please do join us for Friday's one. I thank you. I acknowledge you. From us at the headquarters of #YouBeforeMe, it's goodbye. Ke lebogile, go menagane.
Arthur Ashe says, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And the greatest way to start is by having a team of the elite make you an elite. Whether you're an influencer, YouTuber, or an aspiring entrepreneur, the Street Grad Worldwide gives you global level service, lowest prices, and the greatest of value. If this is you, Catch us on IG, ask us where the grad at, and we